All right, everybody. It is May 2025, middle of May. We're literally weeks, not even, well, I guess a full month till halftime. Can't believe how fast 2025 is flying by. And it is time for the monthly leadership call with Brian Hale. What's up, my brother?
A lot, man. There's a lot going on. Forgive my voice; it's a little crackly. I was speaking yesterday, and you know what that can do to you. And then I was in Park City, Utah, at a Mortgage Expo event with 400 originators, and spent 3 hours in the booth, shaking hands and talking to people, and promoting the weekly roadmap, and doing those kind of things. And it was snowing when I left. It was 84 degrees when I got there Monday afternoon, and it was 28 degrees and snowing when I left Park City yesterday afternoon. So.
Welcome to Park City. That's the way
Well,
it
I
is.
know if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes and it'll
Oh,
change.
exactly. Yeah, it's always changing. So let's do this, Brian, because it is so, we're almost at halftime. I announced on LinkedIn on Tuesday that Kristen and I, this will be our third year where we've done what do we call it? State of the industry halftime report. And so
Yep.
we're going to, publish that.
You published out on LinkedIn to get three things that people were
Yeah,
thinking.
there you
I
go. You saw that?
responded. Yeah, you have my three.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit of that. And that way we could quote you and even make this particular call part of that. And then let's just compare notes. Like I literally had Logan from Housing Wire on our call today, and you probably know what I'm going to say next. But I was just talking like I think the call was, "Are we at the end? Like are we at the end of it?" And he's like, "We've had 15 straight months of improving purchase applications." I didn't realize that we'd had 15 straight months of improved applications for purchase business.
I can't validate that. I'm not saying he's wrong, but to your
I think he's
point,
probably right. He's not usually wrong. He knows the data.
I would say that the improvements are likely pretty marginal.
I could think that's for sure. That
Yeah.
that's for sure. But but I want to get your thought on this. He's like, we are towards the end of this cycle and we are moving into a new cycle. Do you believe that in May right now of
No.
2025 that new cycle is here?
No,
Okay.
well, I mean,
Bring
it
it.
depends on the definition of end of cycle. Do I think there's 3 more years of this? No. Do I think the second half of 2025 is going to be massively better than the first half of 2025? No. And, we got maybe the most positive PPI print yesterday we've had, should have moved the market materially. And it did for a little bit. And then as of today, we're back kind of where we were prior to the print. We got a good inflation number. We got a bad retail number. All those things should have been really positive for rates, and yet they're not. And we're still sitting at, 444 or whatever on the 10-year, 443 today. Spreads are still wide relative to history, and we're sitting, just a touch under 7% on a 30-year fixed mortgage. And so I first of all, I hope he's right. I don't know if you remember this, but he said that at the Economic Forum in Dallas. He was on
Right.
stage. I went on stage, and I remember sitting back in the green room. And again, I'm not criticizing Logan. Everybody has a view. He said, we're at the end. It's over. Bon ton roulette. Bad times are behind us. I'm not there yet at all. And I watch. I talked to a lot of people, and I was on an M&A call today. I was on an M&A call 2 days ago at two different companies. Both are profitable, but taking calls, right?
Right.
And so things are still very difficult. There's no immediate fix. There's no easy button to hit, and oof, everything's better. Everything's still very,
Well,
very hard.
well, I think relying on interest rates to save us it's not a good game to play.
That was my
Because
message
people,
yesterday to 400 reps in the room.
yeah, you helped me with the ROI analysis that we've been doing here. And if a lender was just to really get rigorous around, hey, there are loan officers within your company they have less price exceptions. There are loan officers within your company that have better conversion. And we're not talking like one or two. We're talking like groups of loan officers that have less concessions, that make more gross margin, that have better
Who
conversion.
are
It's
who are
time,
broadening their funnel, calling on the right referral sources, doing all the right things.
and it's time to like scale that. Like we need to scale best practices. That's going to save us. Thoughts on that?
I agree totally. Well, first of all, it depends on who us is. But look, I think I still believe the industry is going to be smaller by the end of this year. Both big companies, medium-sized companies, and small companies will likely go together. I think individual originators and branches and companies could improve their prospects over the balance of this year by doing exactly what you just talked about. By the way, I just want to go on record yesterday in my hour-long speech to 400 originators. I was in there talking about the MortgageCoach total cost analysis worksheet. I was actually, and I footnoted everybody on this, I was using some of Jeremy Forcier's scripting on converting leads with these folks and
Beautiful.
got just an unbelievable response. And clearly, we all have a lot of work to do to help people get much more intentional, much more scripted, much more thoughtful in terms of how they're dealing with the leads they are getting. And I just believe that there's an immense waste of leads on the showroom floor all over this industry because people approach it in a disorganized, not thoughtful, not sequential, no follow up, no method of tracking, don't know their numbers, don't know conversion rates, all those kinds of things. It unnerves me because people are struggling and doing the very best that they think they can. And I heard it yesterday in the group of 400 originators with people saying, well, I tried that for like 2 weeks. I didn't get any more loans, so I stopped doing it. Hey,
I'm gonna go to another place that I think the industry can improve. It was something I learned from Brian by attending the Innovators Conference a couple weeks ago. But check. So one, how your loan officers are pricing loans, how they are presenting price. There's a right way that
yes,
improves your margin by more than 20 basis points and improves conversion by less than 10. And then there's an old school way and a wrong way that's status quo. So that's an opportunity to save. And then I had the pleasure of learning about Rome. Thank you for inviting me to that dinner, and really learning that there's a whole new opportunity in town that and again I didn't go through the whole demo, but when you look at the amount of brick and mortar that people have, and we live in a disparate world, so it's never going back to what it was. I
at least
still
not in our
believe that.
industry. It's not, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I still believe like if you can get in person, like in the loan officer listing, if you can get in person, that's your proximity. Like if you're gonna win, you need to do what
That's
Rocket
better. Right.
can't do, and you need to do what they can do. But like tools like Rome could really be game changing. I mean, that could really improve some P&Ls.
Absolutely.
And how do you see that opportunity with any managers, any leaders listening in here? Like, how do you see that as an opportunity?
Well, I was at a conference before I had dinner with you that night in Huntington Beach, Mortgage Expo conference with a couple thousand sales reps. I spoke at that morning, and the group before me, and you may know this company, I did not. I'm just recently got connected to them. West Capital here in Irvine.
Yeah, Soci Avila is one of their top loan officers and a big mortgage coach. By the way, he's
Right.
someone that you
So
should have on the
yeah, yeah,
the.
yeah, totally. But anyway, here's the short version, right? They're 5 years old, founded by two originators. They did 10 billion last year, right? But here's the best part. I had a deck with things that I was going to talk about. These were to mostly people who are thinking about setting up a mortgage brokerage operation. What should they think about, right? How should they think about doing that? And I had a deck with 5 or 6 things that I thought people should really pay attention to. There's the two guys, the two founders are up front being interviewed, and they spoke on 5 of the 6 things I had in my deck. Things
Really?
like, yes, things like culture. Does that sound familiar, right? Process, making originators better. They have 850 originators, did 10 billion, $11 million per originator. It's a pretty good number, by the way, especially in this environment, this marketplace, right? In the
Yeah,
process
yeah.
last year. And these were all, they expressed them all as learnings, right? Because it was like 2 guys started a company 5 years ago. And they thought, okay, now we're going to run the company the way we want to run it. Then they figured out, wow, you know what? some of the disciplines and structures that other companies have in place are there for a reason. Because if you just let everything run wild, you don't really have a company. And the things like Rome, I just where I'm going with this is the ability to see your organization real time, even though people are scattered maybe all over the market or all over the company or all over the state or all over the country. And to be able to connect in ways like you used to in an office, or if I wanted to talk to Dave for 5 minutes, or maybe I'm in a meeting with some folks and I know you have some content or information that'd be helpful to the meeting, I can go knock on your door, have you join the meeting for just 5 minutes and go back to doing what you were doing. That's what you used to get when you could just walk down the hall and ask your cap markets, guy or gal a question. You don't have that anymore because by and large, post COVID, people are distributed, and I think the real positive part about being distributed is you can get the best talent without regard to where it lives. Right. So,
Yeah.
but to then be able to connect those dots back, and it's more than just a replacement for Zoom because of their magic minutes, the AI, the capability to search, do those kinds of things to quickly get into a stand-up room, have a quick meeting, boof back to what you're doing, see what's happening within your organization. I think it's a very smart piece.
Yeah, no, it is
I've been
very
helping
smart.
guide them through, they quickly discovered that mortgage was probably a great place for them to focus some of their marketing. And so I've, I've converted my entire organization over to Rome. And, and I,
Where, if we were going to give people a link, I met John, who I think was one of the co-founders. Loved his energy, loved, we
he
had a
was one of the
very,
co-founders of AOL.
really,
Yeah.
that's interesting. If anybody wants to learn about that, what link should they go to, or what website should we send them to?
Let me do this. I can shoot you a link and you can include it in this.
All right, guys.
Um,
So if you're watching this, we will have a link down below with all the links that we talk about, and we'll put a link for you guys to learn more about that. So
right.
check it out.
Yeah.
You heard it
Right.
from
Anyway,
both Brian and I. It's another opportunity to improve effectiveness, improve productivity, and lower cost.
yes.
And it's
Yes,
and
yes,
it's
yes.
and it's
By the way, it's way
significant.
cheaper. It's way cheaper than Zoom. I'm going to convert the weekly roadmap over to Rome.
Yeah, I heard you say that. That made me like I have to do some due diligence on that. Okay, so those are two things. So any other either economic news that you want to make sure people know as
Yeah.
we roll into
Yeah.
June?
Look, if I told your audience one thing about this, and you and I we try to avoid politics in these conversations, and I'm not speaking politics. I think, I think, I think the bond market, just like the Fed, doesn't know what the future holds, right? Things are just uncertain. And if you want to freak out bond buyers, give them an uncertain view of the future. And so the tariff thing, the deportation issues, the impact to labor costs, inflation, potential recession, all those things. And it's the message I gave, you hit it on the head. My message to the 400 people yesterday was stop vetching and wringing your hands about what Chairman Powell is doing or not doing. First of all, you can't control it, right? And so you can spend your time and effort doing other more productive tasks and things to improve your business. And secondly, recognize one thing. Many people in this world think they're in charge. I can tell you who's in charge. The bond market. It was in charge before the current administration. It's in charge today. It'll be in charge next week. It'll be in charge after this administration. And we're fortunate, I believe, that we have Secretary Bessent, who's a very knowledgeable guy, understands that market well, and I think is trying to provide good guidance along the process. But we have 36 trillion of debt to roll over this year. Every quarter, China has kind of stopped buying our bonds. Japan, being the largest bondholder of U.S. Treasuries, has also slowed their purchases down. There's no immediate obvious person who's going to step in other than the Fed could, if they decided to kind of moderate rates. And so we're going to be higher for longer. And so to your point, David, I think we need to focus on how do we improve our people given the current environment. And then if rates were to drop, either because of recession or whatever, bon temps roulette. We get a little tailwind, right? In the process that'll enhance whatever you're doing correctly.
Yeah, no, good perspectives. Any between now and June and this next update, anything everybody should keep an eye out for from
Yeah,
a
we're going to
M&A
get the
perspective.
June. Yeah, we're going to get June unemployment the first Friday of June. That'll be an important number. We'll get consumer expenditures in early June as well. That'll be an important piece for the summer. I was listening to Ivy Zellman this morning. She was on CNBC. You know, the spring buy season is upon us, to the point of Logan, right? We're seeing some improvement in purchase apps, although from a very low level. Home builders, interestingly enough, are struggling, even when they're offering 499 type, buy down money on forward commitments. Community activity has slowed. So the pie that we're all feeding on has not grown, is not growing materially, even though inventories are up. And there are desirous buyers out there. But those buyers, I think, are very trepidatious about taking on a 30-year commitment and buying a house. And so, we kind of is what we is. We want to, we saw all the data this week. Most of it was favorable for rates, and we didn't get much improvement.
Yeah.
So
Any data on what percent and of the deals happening right now are first-time home buyers and just the first-time home buyer market as a
no,
whole?
I don't have. I've got some anecdotal stuff, but I don't know if it's accurate, so I'm reluctant to put it out over the airways. But it's the first-time home buyer. Here's the one data that just blows me away. To be honest, and this is valid. 5 years ago, the average age of the first-time home buyer in the United States was 28 years old. It's currently 39 and a half.
Yeah. It's a
And
disaster.
I think that's a statistical quirk. Because I think what it's really saying is that people are simply not buying homes, first-time homes, for affordability, concern, culture, whatever. And then when you get to a certain age where you probably have kids, you're thinking about schools, you're thinking about, neighborhood, that kind of thing, people are buying. And maybe, further along in their career, have the economic wherewithal, that kind of thing. That gap between 39 and a half years old and 28 was the first time home buyer of previous years. That entire segment. And again, you got to be careful with averages because they're a little goofy, right? I'm a believer that averages are statistics for the weak of mind. So show me the strats, right? Show me what's really going on. Because on average, if you have your foot in the fire and a foot on an ice cube, on average, you're okay. But both feet are in trouble, right? In the process. And so you got to be a little careful with averages. But what it says is that segment of home buyers, and I know Kristen Borelli with you and the charity that you founded is out trying to improve, financial literacy with that very segment and even younger. But we're missing. That group is missing in the desert. That
Well,
28 to 40
we,
year old.
well, I think it's also a challenge to our industry. Far too many people think that you need 20%
Yes.
to buy
Yes.
a home.
Yes.
We've done
Or they don't
a poor.
understand. The reason I brought up the total cost analysis worksheet with the crowd yesterday, whether it's that tool or some other tool, to help people understand the difference of wealth creation for their family, of get on the home ownership ladder, however you get there, and then work through it over time. The difference 10 years out to family wealth and
Is
multi-generational
life-changing.
wealth is life-changing. It's like a 10x. When you talk about 10x, people love to use that term. It is 10x, right? Difference in net worth.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think the average net worth of a renter is 10,000 and the average net worth of an owner is 429.
Right.
So it's
Stratosphere.
40x.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's life-changing.
it's life-changing. So just push to executives, what are you doing to create demand? I think it's time to go on the offense and make sure that you're educating people proactively around owning versus renting. And that first time seller strategy that he was talking about, like call up people that have been in their home for 3 to 7 years and
Right.
have a conversation around what's your return on investment been? Make sure they know what their return on investment is. And what? Do you still think values are going to go up? Yes. Would you like to have a nicer home and a bigger home and even accelerate your net worth? Yes. Let's talk creatively around how we can make that
How
happen
do you
for you
get there? Right. How do you get
instead
there?
of waiting for them to call you. Like Rocket's made it really clear that they are going to anticipate the needs of consumers using data And we know they're going to be really smart about how they call, compliantly text and email, and anticipate needs. Guys, we need to go on the offense. All right, everybody. Brian and I are talking about profitability. Let's hear from the president of Churchill on what they're doing at the point of sale, like at the point of credit report, at the point of giving rates and fees and quoting rates to consumers. Let's see what Churchill's doing. Let me share a real live success story.
What we found in the most recent study is that our loan originators, our top tier originators that are MortgageCoach users are 27 basis points more profitable than everybody else. They have 6 to 10 basis points fewer price exceptions, and they're doing 30% more volume on a regular basis than non-MortgageCoach users.
So guys, this is the math. What would it be like if credit report to funding, you had a 10% increase in conversion? What would it mean to your P&L if some loan officers were 27 basis points higher in gross margin and you could actually control it? Like you can't control rates, you can't control exactly what loan officers are, but what would it mean if you had some loan officers, and by the way, you do have some, that are making more in gross value to the company? In Churchill's case, it's to the tune of 2.1 million in increased profits. First of all, if you're watching this, I would love to put together one of these ROI spreadsheets for you. I would love to break it down and show you what it looks like to turn your loan officers into mortgage coaches. So again, fee worksheet loan officer at Churchill is gross margin about $720 per loan. A mortgage coach loan officer is $1,760. So if you want to learn more about that, just shoot me an email, dave@trustengine.com. Private message me on social media, wherever you're watching this. So guys, let's get back to the monthly strategic update with Brian
Dave,
Hale.
if I could just add to that, if you're a sales
Please.
leader, whether you're a branch manager, you're a regional area manager, you're running production for a company, or you have a small operation yourself, our friend Todd Duncan used to have this commentary as part of his delivery to sales leaders that, you're familiar with Paros Principle, the 80-20 rule. He used to restructure that a little bit and say, look, the top 40% of your sales force, and this is, I think, true if you looked at any sales force in our industry, the top 40% of the sales force, for the most part, likely is 85% of the volume and revenue, right? And another guy that was a mentor of mine early in my career had this great saying that if you want to win a horse race, find the horse that's ahead in the race and jump on and whip like hell and ride him to victory. And I do think, and this is not about leaving out, look, you built a career on coaching and helping originators become better originators with great tools. I do think focusing on the folks who are getting it and are doing catching people doing the right things and then helping them, putting resources behind them, doing a profile in their market and community, help them identify opportunities and targets. I think you get a better ROI, a better payback on that, to be blunt, than you do horsewhipping your worst originator to please use their CRM and they refuse to do so, right? And so I just think where you have time investment and opportunity, it is in fact a meritocracy out there. And if you can help your good people become great, your great people become, exponentially better, you get a far better return in many ways.
Yeah, that's something that we've put a lot of serious effort in at Trust Engine. We've built what we call the coaches program,
Right.
and where we're putting a lot of our energy into producing managers, and because the producing managers, if they will lead by example,
Right.
they have a chance of getting other people, and by really focusing on that, like a subset.
By the way, maybe the toughest job in the industry is a producing manager.
No, it is the toughest job in the industry. I mean, because you're a player on the field,
Right, player
handling
coach.
transactional problems, chasing new business, and then if you're doing both jobs right, you are responsible for the success of people behind you. Jeremy Forcier, who you had. I don't know, have
Yep.
you had Daniel Saw as a?
I have not, but you and I have talked about him before, so
Have
he
I
is
introduced you to him?
on my list. You have not. You've introduced me to a number of people, but not Daniel yet.
I'll introduce you to Daniel. He would be just a fantastic.
We had Arjun Dhingra on this morning. Fabulous.
Yeah,
presentation.
fabulous. So
Killer.
Arjun is one of the best at one to many. At if you're going to win in this market, you need to win your database. You need to win locally, and the way he uses social media, you can win locally and nationally. It's really spectacular. So as we close out, remind folks how they can learn more about the weekly
Yeah, the
roadmap.
short version is you have a link for it, or I can shoot you a QR code. It's called the weekly roadmap. It's 9 a.m. Pacific every Friday morning. We do a live version. It's also recorded. We have a community with almost 700 subscribers. You get an app that downloads to your Apple phone or your Google phone, whatever, out of their app stores. It's called The Weekly Roadmap, one word. And again, live 9 a.m. Pacific. I do a market update every Friday morning for about 20 minutes. What's going on? What are the key datas? And then I bring in great speakers like Dave, who's been generous enough with his time to be on a couple of different times. Folks like Arjun, Jeremy Forcier, Shant Bonosian, Nicole, Ruth in Denver, Joe Massey, Jay Promisco was on 2 weeks ago, killed it. And so it's becoming more and more. We're out talking to the communities more. And we've signed our first couple of enterprise accounts. And so by the way, you can communicate with your 700 peers. You can hear how they do it. You can hear how these great speakers do it, these great originators. And it's not just originators. We bring in marketing people, social media people, lifestyle folks, folks to help kind of mental approach to the business, a variety of things. So thanks, Dave, for that.
Yeah, well, I am a big believer in the power of weekly sales meetings. That's something that you and I both have a lot of passion.
Right. That's really what's on this. Let's do.
Yeah. No, the Tuesday call and my whole. Go ahead. Yeah, they don't get it. And so I've always tried to, that's why I create content, a sales meeting. And I feel like you're one of the greatest leaders our industry's ever had. And so to have Brian Hale curating an experience every week
that's really what we do. We're trying to bring together data, market data, personal development issues, great originators and others that help you build your business with real specific tactics. We consolidate it, give it to you in a deck, give it to you in a recording. You can listen to it 14 times till you get it.
Well, check it out. And wherever we post this, if you have questions for Brian and I, when we do the June update, put them down below. We'll share clips of this on social media. Brian and I want to serve at the highest level. We love this industry. It's created just incredible lifestyles for us and a lot of people that we love. And I personally believe, and I know Brian does too, some of the best is yet to come, but not for everybody. Right. This is an industry where you need to be smart. And that probably means you need to do some changing. Status quo is not the path forward as a local originator or for a company that has a lot of local originators working for them. There is some big changes that need to happen. All right, Brian, we crushed it. We're good. If you guys have not already started following this YouTube channel, follow it today. If you're not following savageinsights.com, that is my personal website where I'm always posting who I'm interviewing next. At the top 3, it's always the best content. And then there's also Savage Insiders. It's a mobile club. It's about 2 links down. Just text that number saying, sign me up. And you'll get a couple texts every week that I think will turn loan officers into data-driven mortgage coaches. So this is a wrap. Take care, everybody.